Thanks again for tuning in to Everything Catholic. And as always, I hope all of you are going to learn a lot while you're here with us, so thank you so much for your time. Now here's the table of content for your reference, and I like to start this with this bit about Saint Gemma. Have you ever wondered how the saints received their messages from God, or even from their angels? Well, listen to this.
That's a good point. According to this diary, the guardian angel related this to her. Now, the guardian angels cannot say anything that's not consistent with the will of God because they enjoy the beatific vision, which renders them impeccable, immutable. They participate in God's impeccability, immutability, and so forth. So even though it may have come through the angel, it was inspired, we assume, by God. And remember, Gemma Galgani, she also underwent diabolic attacks. Sometimes she would look at the food and see worms and wouldn't eat because the devil tried to tempt her that way. And she knew how to discern God's spirit from the bad spirit. But even the saints, sometimes when they write, they have to use their own words. You see, oftentimes when God reveals himself, he reveals himself through a light of infused knowledge and not with words. In fact, the subject of my doctoral dissertation, Luisa Picaretta, speaks of the 4 ways in which God revealed himself to her. And one way, and the most common way, is without words. So it's sort of like you getting, in a split second, a treasure trove of knowledge that causes you to ponder and reflect and contemplate for the next week. This profound information is given to you in the substance of your soul, but no words are given, just information like images, patterns of thought. But you now have to come up with the words and articulate what you experienced. That oftentimes is how Gemma received messages. So she uses these words like opinion, but it's not like she literally heard those words from the angel.
For the second clip in this video that I've put together for you, I like to share with you this one on the uncreated light of God, so that the next time at Mass, during the Creed, you're going to appreciate what you're saying so much more after this.
Light, God's uncreated light, we found in Adam before original sin. As the crown of creation, Adam was to continuously act within God's uncreated light, under this constant pulsation of God's uncreated light, penetrating his intellect, his memory, his will, his heart, his breath, his blood, his entire being in such a way that it surrounded his body with a garment of light. And Adam appeared to all the other animals in the garden and to his wife Eve, much like a light would appear in an alabaster vase. The vase cannot contain the light, but the light clothes the alabaster vase, overflows and cloaks it. So Adam appeared much in the Garden of Eden, much like Jesus appeared at Mount Tabor when he was transfigured with light. And this light enabled Adam to influence all living things on earth. So Adam's sons, S-U-N-S, a symbol of his acts in God's uncreated light that mediate grace to all created things, influenced and maintained God's divine order and harmony in all creation. But on account of original sin, Adam willfully disrupted the continuity of God's gratuitous and uncreated light, whereby he was no longer able to, by himself, to receive and communicate this light. Remember, in the Creed, we say that Jesus is begotten of the Father, God from God, light from light, true God from true God. So light is an emanation of God's being. God's uncreated being unleashes this uncreated light that gives life to all things in creation. Without this uncreated light of God, there is no life. And this is something that I believe a whole theology can be based upon. In fact, in my doctoral dissertation, I devote a section just to the theology of light, God's uncreated light and its properties. And to give you an idea of this uncreated light of God, God's divine will from above casts throughout creation the divine will's uncreated light from the center of the most holy Trinity, which, more than the light of the earth's sun, enriches all things and unites all things on earth in the divine will. My daughter, the sun is the symbol of my eternal will. And if this symbol possesses the unity of light, much more so does my will. The sun may be called a shadow of the inaccessible light of my will. The human eye cannot arrive at seeing either where it begins or where it ends, and yet The endless expansion of this light is contained in one single act of my eternal will. The endless expansion of this light is contained in one single act of my eternal will. The totality of my uncreated light is so profoundly united that it is inseparable and indivisible. And greater than the earth's sun, it possesses the eternal unity in which the triumph of God and all of our works is realized. Now, this triumph of the unity of my supreme will is the center of the most holy Trinity, the center of our holy abode and of our throne. From this divine center, our most refulgent rays of light go forth and invest the whole heavenly homeland. What does he mean by that? He means the angels and the saints, all the blessed in heaven. All the saints and angels are invested by the unity of our will. They all receive its innumerable effects, and drawing all things to itself, our will makes of them one single unity within the supreme unity of our will. So here Jesus is saying that light is what causes all the angels and saints to be in harmony. God's uncreated light that is dispatched from his throne, his holy abode that is above all choirs and saints. It descends upon all the orders of saints and choirs of angels, investing them with harmony and unity and light. And this light imparts to them also infused knowledge and bliss and the beatific vision and glory and all the other attributes that the blessed and saints, angels and saints enjoy in heaven. So Jesus continues, these rays invest all creation and establish all creation. That means even on earth, all creatures. These rays invest all creation. These rays invest all creation, Jesus continues, and establish its unity with the soul who lives in our will.
And then the next one, I like this explanation on free will. It makes the whole thing on free will very clear for me. And I hope the same goes for you as well. Listen to this.
Now this is important, and it's underestimated in the Catholic Church and in all Christian churches, in my opinion. The importance of the free human will and God's never imposing his will upon it. You see, why do I say it's underestimated in the Christian world? And I don't mean just the Christian world, in all religions. I truly believe, from my exposure to it, and I've studied religions for years, world religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, Christianity, New Age, Gnosticism, and so forth. They all place an emphasis on following a master, a leader, and they all have intermediaries like angels or saints acting between the creator and the creature. Now, one of the underestimated teachings is the importance of the free human will. You see, when a master on earth, let's say a superior or a parent or a teacher or a counselor or a guide or a director, wants to impart knowledge to the pupil, most cases experience the master telling the pupil what to do. This is not God's approach. God never commands us. He exhorts us, but he doesn't command. He doesn't force us. He doesn't coerce the human will. For example, when we're growing up, the vast majority of us, I will venture to say, were at one point in our childhood told by our parents, either you do this or you're going to be punished, or they said, if you don't do this, you're not getting this toy or this gift or this privilege. So they would coerce us with a reward, merit, or demerit system. And that's okay, because this is how children learn. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm simply saying as adults, we can better appreciate God's approach of not coercing the free human will. God never uses that approach. He exhorts us with love. Certainly, he reminds us of the consequences of our actions, like he speaks of the eternity of hell in Scripture and the eternity of heaven, but he doesn't threaten us. He doesn't impose his will upon us. And this is the true image of the biblical Jesus Christ, never forcing the human will. If God imposed his will upon our free will, there's no more merit, because we're forced. We're not doing it of our own free initiative, volition, or rationality. Therefore, the merit is gone. Let me give you a dim intimation of this reality in the example of a child on Valentine's Day asked by his mother to go into the garden and pick her a rose, as opposed to a child without being told by his mother to do so brings her the rose. Now let me ask you, would the mother receive more happiness from the child who was told to pick the rose, or from the child who did it of his or her own free volition without being told to do so? Well, you know the answer. See, when we're forced to do something, we do it like simply carrying out externally a command, without the interior desire, love, initiative that gives merit to the external action. Remember, God never forces the human will. God never coerces us to do his will. Not even would Jesus Christ force Judas Iscariot to not betray him and be saved. God did not force Judas. He allowed him. God respects the free will so much that he will even allow us to choose to break from heaven and go to hell if we want, as was the case with Judas, despite all the graces God gave him. But the time will come through a fiery purification of earth and its elements and its inhabitants, that a remnant will be left here, like in the days of Noah, a remnant, the meek, to inherit the earth. And these few who remain on earth, Zechariah says 1/3 of the present population will survive the purification of fire, will enter into this new earth, so to speak. St. Peter refers to it as a new earth. The first earth, St. Peter says in his second letter, was done away with by fire. The present heavens and earth are reserved for, the first heavens and earth were done away with the water, the deluge, Peter says. The present heavens and earth are reserved for fire. And then we await a new heavens and a new earth. Check it out. This is in the second letter of Peter. So after this fiery purification, a remnant will emerge, holy and pure, unblemished, without spot, stain, wrinkle, so as to present itself, the new church, to Christ in all its glory. And it is only because the divine will reigns in this remnant that it is able to present itself to Christ in this nuptial that we find in this 22nd chapter of the book of Revelation, the bride and the bridegroom espousing each other. And the bridegroom is Christ, and the bride is the church that is found holy, without spot, stain, or wrinkle, which Paul speaks of in his letter to the Ephesians.
And here's the last clip I want to share with you before moving on to the second part of this video.
Once these souls finish their pilgrimage on earth, they die and they go to the next life. They can no longer obtain merit in heaven. The time of merit ends at the moment of death, you see. So while on earth, we can obtain merit. The saints and angels in heaven cannot. And this is why the angels and the saints are serving us on earth. They're administering to us because our acts in the divine will on earth form their accidental glory, increase their accidental glory. We can obtain merit on earth and in so doing increase their accidental glory. But they cannot obtain any more merit in heaven. The time for merit is on earth, in time and space. That the souls on earth give God more glory than the angels and saints in heaven. That is, the souls on earth who live in his will give God more glory and satisfaction.
And because Father Iannuzzi touched a little bit on St. Gemma earlier, we decided to share this one on St. Gemma, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this one. Listen to this.
From the moment when my mother inspired me with the desire for heaven, I have always, even in the midst of so many sins, wanted it ardently. If God had left the choice to me, I would have preferred to escape from the body and fly to heaven. Every time a fever came upon me and I felt ill, I experienced a great consolation. But this changed to sorrow when, after some illness, I would feel my strength return. One day after Holy Communion, I asked Jesus why he did not take me to heaven. He answered, "My daughter, I do not take you because during your life I will give you many occasions to gain more merit, increasing your desire for heaven as you bear the trials of life with patience." These words in no way diminished my desire. Rather, I felt it increasing in me day by day. During the same year of 1896, another desire began to grow in me. I began to feel an ever greater yearning to love Jesus crucified very much, and at the same time a desire to suffer with him and to help him in his sufferings. One day, as I was looking at the crucifix, so great a sorrow came over me that I fell to the floor. My father was in the house at the time, and he began to reprove me, saying that it was not good for me to stay at home, and that I should go out early the next morning. He had not let me go to Mass the last 2 mornings. I answered in a disturbed tone of voice, "It is not good for me to remain away from Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament." My answer disturbed him because he noticed that my voice was not very strong. I hid myself in a room, and there, for the first time, I gave vent to my sorrow with Jesus alone. Dear Father, I do not remember the words I spoke, but my angel is here and he tells me what I said, word for word. It is as follows. I want to follow you no matter what the cost and pain, and to follow you fervently. No, Jesus, I do not want to continue displeasing you by a tepid life as I have done up to now. That would amount to coming to you to bring you displeasure. Therefore, I resolve to make my prayer more devout and my communions more frequent. Jesus, I want to suffer and to suffer much for you. Prayer will ever be on my lips. If even he falls often who makes frequent resolutions, what will happen to him who resolves but rarely? Dear Father, these words came from my heart in that moment of sorrow and of hope when I was alone with my Jesus. I have made so many resolutions, and I never kept any of them. Every day, amid so many sins of every kind, I would ask Jesus to let me suffer and suffer much. After a little, Jesus sent me a consolation. He sent me a pain in one of my feet. I kept this secret for a while, but the pain was severe. A doctor came and said an operation was necessary, and perhaps the foot would have to be amputated. All of my family was greatly worried, and only I was indifferent. I remember that while they were performing the operation, I cried and complained loudly. But then, looking at Jesus, I begged him to pardon my folly. Jesus also sent me other pains, and I can say with truth that ever since the death of my mother, I have never spent a day without suffering some little thing for Jesus. During this time, I never ceased to commit sins. I became worse every day. I was full of every kind of fault, and I do not understand why Jesus never showed himself angry with me. Only once did I see Jesus angry at me, and I would rather suffer the pains of hell 1,000 times in this life than find myself before Jesus so displeased, and to see before my eyes the horrible picture of my soul. On Christmas Day of 1896, I was permitted to go to Mass and receive Holy Communion. I was about 15 years old at the time, and I had already often asked my confessor for permission to make a vow of virginity. I had asked for this for many years, but I did not really know what it was. It only seemed to me that it was the most beautiful adornment I could offer to Jesus. He would not let me take this vow of virginity, but instead allowed me to make a vow of chastity. So on Christmas night, I made my first vow to Jesus. I remember that Jesus was so pleased with it that he asked me after Holy Communion to unite with this vow the offering of my whole self and all my sentiments in abandonment to his holy will. I did this with such a joy that I spent that night and the next day as if in heaven. That year came to an end, and we entered upon the year of 1897, which was a year of great sorrow for all my family. I, alone being heartless, remained unmoved in the face of so many afflictions. The thing that troubled the others the most was the fact that we were deprived of all means of livelihood, and added to this, my father was seriously ill. One morning after communion, I understood what a great sacrifice Jesus would ask of us soon. I wept very much, but Jesus made himself felt in my soul all the more during those sorrowful days. I saw my father so perfectly resigned to die that I felt strong enough to bear these sorrows very calmly. On the day of his death, Jesus told me not to give way to useless weeping and wailing, so I spent the day praying in resignation to the will of God, who at that moment took the role of both my heavenly and earthly Father.